right, so this is the last picture I ever took with my brother. That's the worst way to start a presentation ever, but this is my story. We took this picture in July of 2009. We spent the weekend doing what we did best, which is drinking and debauchery. A month later, I moved across the country to start grad school where I knew absolutely nobody, but I made this awesome group of friends. We were all in our mid-20s. We were studying together, living together, working together, playing together. And then the unthinkable happened. I was leading a whitewater rafting trip out in the middle of nowhere, and the camp directors told me, hey, we need you to call home. And that was the night my life changed. My brother had been doing what we did best, drinking and debauchery, and convinced his friends that he was sober enough to drive. He was 3 times the legal limit and wrapped his car around a tree. So this is a crash course on grief. So there's 5 stages of grief. You start with denial. Everybody starts with denial. The rest of it is a bit like an interpretive dance. Some days you're on the ground crying, weeping depression. Other days you're hopping mad, and it's never the same for anybody. So what do you say to somebody who's grieving? I really wish somebody had said, hey, man, that sucks, because it does. A lot of my friends wanted to say flowery, big, long words, and that didn't matter. I wanted to know that they were sorry for my loss. I also wanted my friends to acknowledge it. Nobody would acknowledge it. Everybody was scared to talk about it. It was a scary subject. If you don't know what to say, simply say, I'm sorry, that sucks. Really easy. All right, so what not to say to somebody who's grieving? People would always tell me to choose your attitude. I would say, I'm really sad today, and they would be like, well, choose to be happy. You don't get to choose your attitude. There's also no silver linings. There's things that I can see that came from this that were great, but there's not silver linings. A lot of people wanted to throw this Bible verse at me. My faith's really important to me. I love this Bible verse, but it talks about having a plan and a hope for the future. Don't say that to somebody who's grieving. So the other thing you don't want to say is you don't want to compare your grief to anybody else's. We expect your 90-year-old grandmother to die. Your pet, great, a part of the family, not the same as your brother. I had a really awesome, wonderful advisor, and he lost his sister a few years earlier to cancer. And even that, there were days where I appreciated that he understood what I was going through, but he got to say goodbye to his sister. He also had to watch her deteriorate in health. So it's not the same. Don't try to compare grief. It's okay to ask questions, though. I really love getting to talk about my brother and tell my story. The first part of grief counseling is called debriefing, and it is literally telling your story, just going through what happened. Please ask questions. It's a way of sharing him. So the anger stage of grief is not logical. I could go from being furious at my brother for being the dumbass who drove drunk to being furious at you for calling my brother a dumbass for driving drunk. There is no rhyme or reason. Next thing is that grief wears you out. Depression is a part of it, but it's more than that. You have to literally think about putting one foot in front of the other. So by the time that you get into work or school or wherever you're going, you need a 15-minute power nap to have energy to do the next thing. So some days are good, some days are bad, and just like when Chuck Norris calls, you don't have a choice. You answer the phone, you take the day that you have. Things that should upset you don't always upset you. Things that shouldn't upset you sometimes do. Now, my friends would often stop mid-sentence because they would be freaking out that they had said something that would upset me, like, oh, I just about died when this happened. Well, you're not suddenly reminding me that my brother died. He's a part of me. He was the first 22 years of my life. I'm remembering him. So I'd like to add some stages to the grief. When they say near-death experiences make you different, it's totally true. I am a risk taker to this day. I got tattoos. I learned to love roller coasters. I want to go skydiving. Something you don't want to do is try and talk about faith unless you're really ready for that discussion. There are days that I would not kiss my mother with the mouth I use to talk to God. Don't do it unless you're prepared for the entire conversation. Next part is a lot of people say, well, you'll get back to normal soon. You don't ever go back to normal. You're never the person you were before the grief. You find a new normal, but you're a different person than you were before. And finally, if you don't know what to do, don't ask. Just find something that needs done. The best thing that helped me was when friends said, hey, my wife's cooking dinner tonight. Why don't you come home with me? Looks like your house needs cleaned. Why don't I come over and help out with that? Just do it. So if you take nothing else away from tonight, I want you to know that the best thing you can do is give the gift of your presence. So if you will take your glass, I'm going to toast. Here's to living life to the fullest. Cheers, y'all.